Morning.
Who would like to start us off? We'll go with Ira, right side. Yeah, go ahead.
Obviously, the first half was a slog. Did you guys have to change much of what you were doing? I mean, obviously, you changed formationally. What did that do for you, and why do you think the offense struggled so much in the first half?
Yeah, first half, we were struggling to move them. So we actually made a pretty drastic change. If you notice in the second half, we took like gigantic splits, 6.5 foot splits, and started just folding everything versus the odd stack. When you face a defense that plays one high, without +1 in the run game, they're always going to be +1. So we decided at halftime to kind of make a drastic change and go super wide splits there and start just folding everything and just trying to create some space in the running game and making those external fitters fit with all the space. And obviously that lasts a few drives, but eventually, they're going to start popping and twisting, and that's why you can't live in those splits an entire game. But it did spur us a few drives there of explosiveness.
Ira.
Was there a thought during the week that Jordan might be back, and how could or should, looking back, you have changed anything more knowing that Mackenzie was going to be there?
No, they did exactly what we thought they would do on every single snap. There was only really one play in the entire game that, before the ball is snapped, everybody on our team should not know exactly what's going to happen. They were a team that played literally 8 defenses, and they were a master of those 8 defenses, and we had great tips in terms of what they were going to be in based off of certain alignments to get us into the right plays. And at the end of the day, when you face defenses like that, it's like the air raid of defense. They're going to come out and they're going to do their 8 things, and they think they're going to do their 8 things better than you're going to do whatever you're going to do. And they came out and they pretty much whooped our butt there in the first half, got going a little bit, and that's why if you look at their scores, they gave up 7 points to each prior and 13 points before us. Is they come out there and they don't let you run the football, and that's why they're the #1 running defense in our league.
Corey.
Yeah, it seemed like Keyshawn made a special play on the one going across because he wasn't supposed to be there. But other than that, to be a good passing offense, at some point, and I'm not trying to kill the position group, your receivers just have to go make plays and make special plays. Are there guys in this segment that you can see doing that before their careers are up?
Yeah, I think obviously every position on the field, specifically wide out, because they're put on more of an island. You're going to be put on one-on-one situations. For us, we try to create some stacks, create some bunches, create some rub routes to try to help our guys win those one-on-ones. But at the end of the day, that's what football comes down to, is the one-on-one and finding your best matchup, and trying to utilize that best matchup. So I think every position on the field, it comes down to what you just said, winning one-on-one, and it's our job as coaches to help those guys be successful, and I got to do a better job of putting them in better positions to win those one-on-ones and giving them better opportunities to be more successful.
Chris.
With Miami's defense, what are the challenges they present, and what can they do well?
Challenges, they're super talented. When you watch from a talent level, it's Clemson and then it's Miami, in my opinion, from a pure talent on the field level. You watch them play, and they're disruptive. They're athletic, they're disruptive. Some of those young DBs are incredible with the ball in the air, ball skills wise. Then the young D linemen are twitchy as can be. If you watched their game last week, they pretty much put on a dominant defensive performance if you remove 2 runs. There's 2 explosive runs that go for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. But if you take away those plays, their defense played phenomenal last week. And that's kind of been something that's hampered them, is just their ability to tackle. But when they're in the red, they're there, and they're disruptive. Their explosive plays have been given up just basically on missed tackles. So it's a great challenge for our guys to, go win their one-on-one like we just alluded to.
Back right, Aslan.
Coach, you mentioned how Jordan's relatively young in terms of his game experience. You saw him go up against Clemson, who you say is probably the most skilled, talented defense you have. The NC State game probably helped you get a better idea of what he can do, but do you ultimately feel like you guys, whatever Clemson did to hem him up, that's stuff that you won't encounter later on this season, or is it stuff that you feel you can overcome against a team like Miami with their skill set?
Well, I mean, when you say hem him up, I mean, at the same time, he had the #1 passer rating versus Clemson. So obviously they prevented us from scoring because they were extremely, extremely talented up front. I mean, when you're creating rush with a 3-man or 4-man rush, you're going to hit most quarterbacks up when you get to drop 7 or 8 when you're facing a D line like that. I think when you have a guy like Jordan back there, it definitely, a guy who can throw the football like he can throw the football like he's proven, it prevents defense challenges defensively, because when you're in one high structures like you saw last week, you're actually down a half the run fits. When you're not in those one high structures, right, now you're susceptible to the play action passing game because you're in your quarters run fits. So I think the full variety that Jordan brings you makes you a much more difficult offense to defend because of his athletic ability in the +1 run game.
Aslan.
We asked Coach about Chubba's decision to transfer in the middle of the season, and said it was pretty much a surprise for a lot of you guys around the program. What sort of stuff are you comfortable sharing about you talking to Chubba about that decision? Do you lay out things like, you know, you really are close to being on the field for us? I mean, what kind of conversations can you have with the kid when he's made that decision, or is it too late?
Yeah, I mean, you just tell them the truth and you're honest with them, and that's the way we recruit. That's the way we handle our players. We're not going to sugarcoat things. We're going to tell them exactly where we think they stand, whether they like it or not, whether it's good or bad for them, and then they got to make the best decision that's best for them. That's why the transfer portal is there for those guys. You know, coaches leave all the time, and I don't think the transfer portal is a bad thing. I think it's the best opportunity for those guys for them to be successful in their own right. So you know, I'm rooting for him to be successful in his next chapter, and I know for a fact that he got drastically better through his time here. I know he knows he got better through his time here, and that's all I can control. I can just help our guys maximize themselves when they're here, and I wish them nothing but the best.
Ira.
These last 2 weeks were probably the best 2 run defenses we might face all year. Are there things that you take from those that the guys could have done better, or the offense could have done better? I mean, other than just chalking it up to those 2 teams do a really good job of stuff.
No, I think both situations were almost completely different. You know, you have 1 week in which Jordan's in and they're a pressure team and they're creating the chaos up front, and it's all about penetration and disruption when you had a team like Clemson. And then you flip the script and you play a team like NC State, who is pretty much, when they try to stop the run, they play 3 weak, they bail out their corners, and they play cover 3 with a 7-man run fit versus spread. So anytime, like we always allude to, anytime you play with a post safety, if you don't have that running threat back there, regardless of what you do, they're going to be +1. Now you can run away from the +1, like if you notice throughout the game, I think somebody alluded to it, you know, running away from a +1, and number 10 from backside can fold back over top and make a play for a gain of 2. That's what made NC State great run fits. We're running away from the extra hat, the ball hits in the middle of the field, and their backside fitter, who's pre-snapped the line in the apex weak, is folding to make that play. Obviously, when you have a threat back there like a Jordan, right, that guy's not going to be as aggressive because he also has to play the quarterback. So those runs, instead of going for 2, may go for 7, 8, 12. It may put you on the post safety in which you have a one-on-one that could go for 70. You don't know. But I would say they're completely drastic, different styles of how they stop you, kind of polar opposite, but they were both good in their own right.
Ira.
After the game, we talked to McKenzie. He mentioned that he felt like you guys called some man beaters and things that should have maybe created some separation with the receivers. Is it something they weren't doing execution-wise, or is he not getting the ball where it needed to be? Why do you think that wasn't working the way maybe it was designed?
I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes back down to we gotta get our guys to execute those things better. You know, I gotta be more detailed in how I'm coaching those guys and maybe getting the ball out a half second earlier. We gotta be more detailed in how we're coaching those guys to run through certain shoulders and certain landmarks and how to create a rub when a guy is pressed and we can't get pushed so wide so we can stay vertical through the shoulder, and how to throttle down instead of accelerate. You can always slow down, you can't always speed up. So you would rather be too high on a rub and decelerate than too low on a rub and get beat over top. So we got to do a better job of teaching and explaining and coaching those situations when we're helping our guys, in the man coverage situations.
Ira again?
Following up on that though, you're running out some young receivers, that's not an excuse, but how much of that comes from experience and how much of it comes from ability? Like to Corey's question, do you see the potential that once those things get cleaned up, you're gonna see much better execution?
Yeah, I mean, you would obviously love and hope to say, okay, we're going to learn from this mistake. We're going to learn from these plays. We get pressed in the slot and we can't get pushed too wide, right, in order to create a rub. Because that's the one thing people, when you think about rubs, when you think about creating, rub slants, rub unders, 7 out, whatever that rub is, somebody's still getting pressed. So you either have to win with the press player to create a rub, and if he doesn't win at the press, then you don't ever create a rub for the guy who's soft. Or you just let the soft player win by himself without the rub. So even when you have rub concepts, somebody has to win. The person who pressed has got to create the rub by winning. So it's more understanding what the whole purpose of the concept is. And I do think the more reps we get, the older we get, those guys are going to have more of a savviness to why we're doing these things, and not just, okay, I'm being pressed, I got to get a release. Coach told me to release outside but try to push vertical. Well, why do we want you to release outside and push vertical? It's because we need to try to throttle on the corner, right? It's not to release outside and push back into the guy you're covering. It's to release outside and get vertical so you can then decelerate when the corner undercuts, right? And you saw throughout the game they were playing over top a lot of our rubs because we were getting pushed a little bit too wide, and those are all learning experience for our guys. And like I said, I got to do a better job explaining throughout the week of what we're going to get. I got to do a better job coaching those guys on how to help each other out, because that's all it is. It's just like perimeter blocking. You get blocked on the perimeter, you're going to create explosive plays for other people. When you're involved in a rub concept, you're creating an explosive play for another person. And we got to do a better job. I got to do a better job coaching those things.
Ira for the last one.
Tate's development, and the coach said that he was under the weather last week as well. But he was fourth, before. Now he's third. If you have everybody available, what does he need to do to get to a point where you guys feel comfortable, putting him back into a game?
Yeah, I mean, I would feel comfortable with him in a game right now. I think he's put in a lot of good work. I mean, he's a guy who we kind of forced into action last year when we shouldn't have. We had COVID, and he shows up, and all of a sudden he's starting week 2. And he wasn't ready at that time to go in there. And I think that's one of the worst things you can do with quarterbacks is force them in a situation when they're not ready. And I thought by default we kind of had to do that last year to him. But that's a guy who's continually gotten better throughout his time here. He has a great grasp of the offense now. He understands what we're trying to accomplish. He understands who he's trying to control on each play. He understands when and where the ball needs to be out on. So I'd have great confidence if he went in a game. He's just got to continue to work on in the rhythm of his drops and the tempo of his drops. And then when bad things happen, that's one of the hardest things when you're in high school. And he is actually a plus athlete. You all saw him do his little somersault flip this summer. And he's a plus athlete. And when you're a plus athlete in high school, you always think that you can make those extra plays when you get to college. And it's really hard to detrain yourself that, dang, even though I'm still a really, really good athlete, right, there are better athletes than me on the field right now. So one of the things I always talk about with him is, when bad things happen, don't make them horrible. It's okay to throw the ball away. Checkdowns are our friends. And that's something that even yesterday or Sunday, which was yesterday, sorry, days are all messed up. Last night, even in the young guys scrimmage, he went out there and he threw 2 balls away. And those are the things that you look for with a guy like that in progression, is understanding, okay, that is a good play. Throwing the ball away, throwing a check down is a good play at quarterback, and he's starting to get to that point.